You know, choosing a bike, choosing a motorcycle, it's such a personal thing. And sometimes it's hard to know which one to go for. There's so many out there. But the best way I heard someone say it was, you know you've chosen the right motorcycle if when you get off it, you have to look at it. And with the Honda GB350S, and I feel that way every time. You know, I've had this bike now for 7 months. I've done 10,000 kilometers on it, and I still can't stop looking at it. It captures me. You know, and that's what a bike is, right? A bike isn't just a mode of transport. It isn't just a machine. It's part of you. It's a part of your soul. It's all about how you feel when you ride it, how you feel when you look at it. And this is what makes them so addictive, so wondrous. Yeah, you sound like an idiot when you try to talk about the love you can feel for a machine, but I love this bike. I'll never get rid of it. This is here to stay. Alright guys, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Hope the sound's working alright with the helmet here. We're just on a nice cruise down the coast today. Beautiful day. Oh man, it's December and it's warm. Sun's out, not a cloud in the sky. It's gonna be a great day. And we're riding on the Honda GB350S. That's what you tuned in for. That's what we're gonna talk about. What it's like to live with, etc. Now, I've had this bike for about 7 months. I've done nearly 10,000 kilometers on it, and I can tell you, it is a blast to ride. It's super fun. Roads like this is what it's designed for. This is bread and butter right here. So let's get into the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the power. Yep, the GB is a little bit underpowered. It is not a fast bike, but it's got enough pull to have a great time. That's what it's all about, right? So for the engine, we've got a 20 point something horsepower engine. It's not very strong, and it delivers that max horsepower around the 5,500, somewhere in that sort of range there. It's where you're going to get the most horsepower out of it. Now, the engine also produces 30 Newton meters of torque, which you'll find a little lower down. We find that torque down in around the 3,000 RPM range. So it pulls along pretty well. It doesn't suffer too much down low for a small capacity bike. It starts to suffer when you get a little bit higher up. When you start getting over around the 100 kilometer an hour mark, that's when you really are lacking power. But for a road like this today, like we're cruising along here, it's absolutely perfect. You can just sit here and hammer around up to about 80, 90 kilometers an hour and not even notice that you need any more power. Now the Honda's great for this kind of riding because it's a light bike, which means that you can lean it over in the corners pretty easy. The suspension that's on it will handle any kind of bumps in the road. It's quite comfortable. It doesn't want to skip out on you, things like that. So you can really relax and just enjoy long sweeping curves and corners and really take your time while you're cruising around out here on these nice coast roads. These are the kind of roads that this is sort of bred for. It's this cruising, wind in your hair, thump from the engine, just enjoying the day kind of ride. That's what the GB is all about. But, I mean, it can do a lot more than that. We'll get into that later in the video. But for roads like this, I mean, it's pure freaking heaven. I love this bike. Yeah, baby. And GB is fantastic for you beginner riders out there. If you're thinking about your first bike, you're looking for something that's a little bit lower capacity, something that's not going to be too intimidating, this could be the bike for you for sure. It's got traction control, it's got ABS, it's got all the safety features. It's not overly powerful, it's not going to kick you off the back, you're not going to be popping torque wheelies. It's real easy to ride. The clutch is super light, gear change is super smooth. The saddle's a nice height, it's not too high, I think it's at like 80 centimeters. So, you know, it's quite a comfortable bike. Even for a bigger rider, it's still a very comfortable ride. Now, if you're a more experienced rider, well, this is where it gets real fun too, because you can ride this bike really hard and push it to its max. just in your general everyday rides. You don't need to go out and find a track. You don't need to go out and find a crazy expressway or desert highway. You can take this bike out just on your regular back roads around where you live and really, really lay into it and feel like you're pushing it to the edge of its envelope and just enjoy the hell out of it. I mean, this is just a fun ride.
Now with the S, one of the things that really sold me about the S over the standard GB, which is available, was the saddle. So the saddle on the standard GB is just a little bit wider right across here as it connects to the tank. It's a little bit more boxy, and I found that a little bit more uncomfortable. It made me sort of sit with a wider stance. It didn't feel as comfortable gripping the tank. Whereas on the S, it's got this tapered in seat, so it feels like really streamlined and connected to the saddle. So I can grip the bike really well with my knees and feel like super connected to it without having to use my arms and hold on to the bike, which is really, really useful. Okay, so we'll just come around here. I'm gonna jump on the bike, turn it on, and just give you an idea of how it sounds on the startup. So the seating position, as you can see, I'm 178 centimeters, 5'10"-ish, like that, and I can put my feet down on the ground pretty well on this bike. So it's the saddle sits at about 800 mils, so it's 80 centimeters. So it's quite a comfortable bike for someone my size. With the saddle not being too aggressive as it rises here, if you're a taller rider, you can scoot back a little bit, and vice versa. If you're a shorter rider, you can get right up on the tank, and you're still gonna have plenty of room for your legs. Most of the time, my seating position, I'm sort of in about here. And then as you grab the handlebars, you can see this is kind of the seating position. It's very comfortable. With the S compared to the standard GB, the S is just slightly more aggressive, it's slightly more forward. It's very minimal, but it makes a difference. I found that when I got on the standard GB, I felt like I was sitting very upright. I felt like an old man. Whereas on this, I feel just a little bit more like, let's go, baby. So that side of it's good. Okay, let's crank it on for a sec. Now, before I actually start it, one of the things I really love about this bike is the engine note. The exhaust note is beautiful, but the exhaust note really kicks in when you're in like second, third, and fourth, and you're really going for it. Then it's just got that thump, 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 thump. That sounds great. However, when you start it up, it's quiet. It's not like loud and obtrusive. It's not going to piss off your neighbors, which is something that I love about this. So you can like. Right, that's the idle there. Now, when you first start it up, the idle is a little bit louder and it tones down as the bike starts to warm up. Here it goes now. It's just starting to slow down a little bit there now. There it is. Right? So you can see it's not an overly obnoxious kind of loud bike, but when you give it a little bit of revs, it's got a nice sound. It sounds good. It sounds better when you're riding it, which you can see in the video.
Okay, so this is where the GB really shines. It's when you get into these smaller, twisty mountain roads. It's got plenty of torque and power just to sort of wind through the second and third, fourth gear sort of range. But it's so light and nimble, you can just throw it around, throw it through the corners. I mean, look at this day, look at this road. Now, this isn't the smoothest road out there. This is bumpy as all get out. There's all kinds of undulations, probably not showing up on the video. But it's a real rough kind of road. You don't know what's coming from around the next corner so much, whether you're going to have a smooth bit of banked asphalt or it's going to have a big dip in it. But the suspension handles it well. The throttle response is great. It's super smooth. I've heard some people say it's kind of jerky and twitchy, but I don't see that at all. It just delivers the power right as soon as you twist it. It's fantastic. And then you've got that note, that engine note. Oh, geez, I'll just let you listen to that and I'll shut right up.
Now, there's a lot of people talking to me about the Royal Enfield and how they compare. Now, I haven't got experience with Royal Enfield. I haven't ridden them. I've seen them around. I've gone and looked at them. They just didn't do it for me personally. I thought when I looked at the Royal Enfield, I saw a bike that was trying very hard to look like an old classic bike, but in a new bike. And if I just wanted a really old classic bike, I'd just go buy an old classic bike. That's just my personal preference. Whereas with the Honda, it's got the classic vibe, but it's all modern, right? So like you've got this like smaller front, sportier mudguard. You've got this kind of robust LED headlight, this simple heads-up display like meter and things here. You get the classic mirrors, so you get that classic look through there. The tank has got a cool shape to it. It's got these nice little indentations in it. It's got this nice, shiny, metallic black kind of. It's almost like got like a fleck in it, like a flake is the word I was looking for. Real pretty kind of color. Then you got the simplistic looking engine. The exhaust is a modern looking exhaust. It's got a nice sound. It's all blacked out and chromed. You don't have the spoked out wheels like you get on a lot of the bikes that are trying to be classics. In this one, you've got these cast wheels, which I like the look of them. Now on the front, you've got single disc. It's a 2-piston single disc brake. Same on the back. More than enough stopping power because it's not a heavy bike. It's only 180 kilograms. So it stops and goes, no worries. This bike's got plenty of pickup and it will stop. It's very comfortable. Suspension, it's not the greatest suspension. It's not inverted forks or anything like that, but I've never had a problem. The rear is adjustable. You can set your preload on your rear. The front is not, but I haven't even touched it straight out of factory. I weigh 80 kilograms and it feels perfect. I've never bottomed out. I've never felt like it was skipping out in the corners, anything like that. It has traction control, which you can switch off. It has ABS. These are modern features that I want to have in a bike, but I can switch it off if I want to. You can't switch the ABS off, just the traction control. But I have no reason to do that. I've turned off the traction control once in a blue moon when I feel like losing the back tire a little bit. But for the most part, I just leave it on. Now on the front with the S model, you get a 19-inch wheel. I think it's a 17 on the standard model. And on the back, you get, I've forgotten what it is. Where's the number? Yeah, so on the back it's a 17-inch. So it's a 17 on the back and a 19 on the front. 17 on the back. It's a nice big fat meaty tire. It comes with these Metzler Tourace Nexts, great road tires, and they work fairly well on, you know, less than perfect roads as well. They're not straight up street tires. They have a little bit of grip so you can get around. I've had it out on some little goat trails and things like that, and over some rocks and gravel and mud, and they work fine. But yeah, it's better on the road. If you want to go and do some scrambling kind of stuff, then yeah, flick out, change those tires over to something with a bit of an off-road sort of set, and you're fine. Okay, so when we're coming to the instrument cluster on the bike, it's a bit of a love-hate with me. I do like it. I think it's cool. I like having an analog speedo. I enjoy that. So I like to see the needle rise. I'm not really looking for the digital. I don't really want to see the numbers. So I like to watch the speedo go up on the needle. So it does have that, which is really cool. The design being slightly off center, a little bit askew, yes and no for me, and it's very plasticky. So that, not so good. It does have a nice little LED insert on there, so you can see your range, you can see the time, which is nice when you're out on longer rides. You can see what gear you're in, all these kind of things that are always there on the screen. So it's a quick reference. It's very nice for that. You're not going to worry too much about like trying to figure out if you're in third or fourth. It's always there. So that side of it's good. The little side panel here tells you when you got your high beams on, if the traction control's on. It's got an annoying feature, which is the eco light, just to let you know when you're riding ecologically, I guess. And it's something that you can't turn on or off, so it just keeps coming on green or going off. And I just don't think it's overly necessary to have. It would be cool to have as an option, but not something that's constantly flicking on and off while you're riding. It's just a little bit of a distraction. It has a slip clutch, so it's super light. The clutch is crazy light. It's one of the lightest clutches I've ever had on a bike. Granted, I used to ride a lot of older bikes, so they didn't have that technology. So that's really good, really easy. Your indicator switches down here, easy to reach with your thumb. Once in a blue moon, you might catch the horn by mistake if you're a little bit out of sorts. You got your engine start on and off here, and you got your hazards. So, I mean, it's a real simple controls on here. Plus you got your little toggle for high beam, flick it forward to leave it on, and you got your passing flick lights there. So it's pretty standard when it comes to the controls that it has. So two of the factory things that I'm not a big fan of with the bike is the mirrors and the grips. So we'll start with the mirrors. The reason I don't like the mirrors, they look cool, right? They're real retro and stylish, and they're fairly well made, I guess. But the stalks don't come out wide enough. So if you're somebody like me, and I mean, I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but for the most part, I'm looking at my shoulders and my arms whenever I'm riding. So I've got to kind of do the lean across to get a better vision. Quick glances doesn't work. So I will probably remove those and put some bar ends on there just to get them out further. The second thing was the grips. So the grips were, they're really hard, they're really narrow, really thin. And I found that on long rides, because I don't wear padded gloves, I just wear leather gloves, that my hands would start getting really sore from like the vibration running through them. And also they're so narrow that I had to kind of almost close my hand real tight around them just to keep a grip on them. Of course, when I'm riding, I'm using my legs to hold the bike, but I would start getting really numb hands after, like say a 2-hour ride or something like that. So I went ahead and got the Trip Machine leather wraps. I figured that would be a quick way to do it. I like the look of it. So I wrapped them up and it worked perfect. They're really good. It just gave them a little bit more robust, a little bit extra padding, and now I have no problems with the grips.
Okay, here we go. We're going to get on the expressway now. It's going to be a bit of a headwind come in. I can feel it already. Now, I'm not sure if this is a 100 or an 80 expressway, so I may have to slow down at some point. But I'm going to get the bike up to speed and show you how it cruises along. Once you're up to speed, though, it tends to hold it pretty well. But if you're fighting a headwind like I am now, you've got weight on the back. I've got all my gear on the back of the bike. I'm fairly heavy myself, and I'm going up this slight incline. You can see like the speed starting to fall off even with the throttle held full open. But this is definitely not the bike you want to have if you have to ride over 100 kilometers an hour, like over extended periods of time on the expressway. It's really going to struggle. You're going to be riding this thing flat tack all the time just to try to maintain speed, and you're going to have nothing in reserve for like passing or anything like that. So I don't recommend the GB350 if you're doing a lot of highway riding over 100. Okay, so we're going to do the 0 to 100 right now. I'm going to preface this by letting you know that I do have quite a lot of gear on the back of the bikes, which will affect performance. Alright, let's get into it. Here we go. And that's 100. Not the fastest bike you're going to find around, but it came in pretty well. I mean, when you break it down, it sort of puts it right between the Triumph 400. The Speed 400, I think, is around 8 and change, just over 8 seconds to get to 100 kilometers an hour. And then when you look at the Royal Enfield 350, depending on the model, it can be somewhere between 14 and almost 17 seconds. So that puts the Honda GB350S pretty much bang in the middle for performance from 0 to 100. Alright folks, so now we're doing a little night riding. Sun's just setting, kind of twilight really. Now the headlight on the GB is really good. It gives you a decent field of view. It's an LED, it's quite bright. The indicator stalks, of course, are always lit up while you're riding, so you're you're easy enough to see out here on the road. You can see fairly well ahead. Sometimes on some dark roads and stuff, I'm gonna have to flip on the high beam just so I can see what's coming up, you know, corners, things like that. But for the most part, I can see pretty well at nighttime riding around. Oh man, it's really getting cold. Like it was like a really beautiful 24 degrees Celsius today. I mean, it's December here in Japan, it's winter. But as soon as that sun went down, oh, it plummeted. I think it's down to like 3 or 4 right now, and it should get colder. So I'm gonna get out of here, get home, get warm, and finish the video up here. I really thanks for watching this far if you've made it through, and of course please hit that subscribe button and share the video around. It really helps me keep things going, and most of all, get out there and enjoy a ride. Happy riding, folks.